Hey y'all, my name is Ann Wyatt. I started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Workforce 4.0. Super excited to have both Roman and Nikki on the show from Quotebeam today. Hey y'all, how are you?
Hey, we're good. Thanks for having us on, Ann.
Hi, Ann. Awesome. Nice meeting you. And yeah, super happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I feel like this has been a long time coming. I have been trying to get Nikki on the show for a few years, and we all just kind of stay a little busy, and it's been crazy getting you all on, but we made it happen in season 5. So
season 5, girl, congrats. Yeah, you've been at it for a while, and I've been trying to get on since season 1. So I don't know where we crossed our wires. Mostly scheduling, right? We see each other all the time, but we're always running in different directions. So I'm super glad we made this happen.
Mostly scheduling. Yeah, no, Roman, Nikki, and I, and a bunch of the other girls, we rented an Airbnb at Automate. Did you know that?
She did mention that. Yes, that's awesome.
It was fun, but I want you to know that she was out doing the Lord's work because I did not see Nikki. I saw Nikki like very briefly the whole time. So she was busy. She was out hustling.
Nikki definitely hustle. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that number of times, but Nikki's ability to connect with people is absolutely astonishing, to the point where it makes me somewhat uncomfortable at times because I am naturally a super introvert that's trying to be an extrovert. And Nikki you can just walk into somebody and say, hi, I'm Nikki, what's your name? And before you know, they having discussion about automation, about travel to Iceland, and there's those connections are being built out of literally thin air. So yes, I know.
Yeah, she's amazing at that. But before we get started with our conversation today, do you two want to give formal introductions of yourselves in case some of our listeners may not know how awesome Quotebeam is, first and foremost, and also maybe they haven't seen Nikki or yourself out there?
Sure. So I'm pretty sure they've seen more of Nikki than have me. So I'll do a quick intro of myself. I'm an engineer by heart. I've spent over 20 years in industrial automation industry, building anything from handling machines for silicon wafer to machines that push potato bags from one conveyor to another. Seen a lot of different cool applications. But now I am a founder of technology startup, modernizes the procurement process for industrial automation industry. Something that kind of a pain point as an engineer. Then I got into operations and manufacturing. So all those challenges that I had throughout my entire career culminated to the point where we decided to start Quotebeam.
Awesome. I love that. I love a good origin story. Nikki, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Nikki Gonzales. I am the first employee at Roman startup, Quotebeam, and my background is in actually sales engineering and industrial automation. Roman and I first met when on my second job after I graduated college when I was working with Festo. So I was a sales engineer for pneumatics and electromechanical motion in the Bay Area, and Roman was head of the customer solutions team in the Bay Area at the time, which is kind of an engineering side of Festo, where they did full installations, built sub-assemblies for OEMs, panels, things like that. And so we ended up working together just briefly before I left and went into software. Because again, great products, but the procurement, there's challenges. And I really learned a lot of how lots of things are made. And then I ended up going into actually working with other startups and working in supply chain with data analytics and AI and building software for enterprises. And in the end, we ended up coming back together when Roman started Quotebeam. We had some conversations in between, and he's being very humble. He actually left an incredible job at Apple, being head of iPhone operations, to start Quotebeam. So yes, he was building machines at one point, and then at another point, he was in charge of lots and lots and lots of machines that make a lot of things that all of us use. And yeah, I just thought it was an incredible idea when I first heard it. Yeah, exactly. Who can live without that stuff? And when he was going to Stanford and working with our co-founder and CTO, Andrew, and they were working on this kind of as a class project, I just immediately knew that it was going to be something that I wanted to be involved in somehow. And a couple of years ago, the timing was finally right. And we pulled the trigger on, or they pulled the trigger on this, and then I couldn't help but join. And the rest is kind of, I guess what we would say, the rest is history, which is really the last couple of years of us growing the company with this incredible community of customers, supporters, suppliers, people that I've had the pleasure of connecting with in the industry as we're building something to try to help everybody.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really cool. I did not know that. I did not know that is how you got started with Quotebeam, that it was a class project.
Well, actually started before, So one thing that really makes, well, I wouldn't call it successful companies, but one thing that makes companies succeed is perseverance and grit. So I actually failed Quotebeam before it became a school project. I started with a friend of mine, and we just didn't make it. There were so many things that we didn't know. Even as a simple thing as forming a company. We started an LLC, which means that LLC can never take venture capital money because you cannot issue stock, right? So as simple as that, and there was a number of things that led into us failing the first time. So I kind of parked this for probably about 2 years. And then after that, I went to Stanford, met my co-founder, and learned a lot of new things. And that actually became a school project. One of the classes, our teacher said, "Hey, we're gonna build a go-to-market strategy, and you have to come up with an idea. If you don't have an idea, don't worry. I have a spreadsheet with about 150 different ideas. You can take one of mine." And I didn't need a spreadsheet. I already knew what I'm gonna do, and I managed to convince five students in my class to do Quotebeam as a school project. And of course, we aced it. Everybody got an A in that class. And then a couple months later, Andrew and I, we met in Palo Alto for lunch. We sitting like, "Hey, do you want to do this full time?" It was Andrew asking me if I want to do it full time. I already know, hell yes, I want to do it full time. So we bootstrapped it for a couple of years. We kind of play around with different ideas. Where we started and where we are right now is very different. Our mission has stayed always the same, but the road that we took to get where we are is very, very windy. So we made a few major pivots, smaller pivots, adjustments as we build a product, as we talk with customers. And our customers, that's a very broad area because we interact with engineers, procurement buyers that use the product. We interact with distributors, with manufacturers directly. So it's been a very, very interesting journey.
That's amazing. Yeah, I really want to get more into some of those lessons that you touched on with that story from Quotebeam. But before we do that, there's a really important question I've got to ask y'all because I'm dying to know. But if we're out and we're hanging out at a show or we're doing like a networking event or whatever, I love to like sing, like not professionally or anything, like mostly in the shower and like karaoke and stuff. But like I love to do karaoke. So if we were gonna go sing some karaoke, I've got to know what your go-to karaoke song is from each of you. I need both responses.
I'm gonna let Roman take this one first.
Oh boy. All right. So first of all, just for the disclosure, I don't do karaoke. I mean, I cannot sing, and I know that. My wife reminds me that every time I try to sing, that you cannot sing. She drags me to karaoke. She loves karaoke. She sings. I refuse to sing. However, was it about 2 weeks ago? We had our company offsite. This time we had it in San Francisco. So the whole team from Europe, from US came to San Francisco. And I didn't know that, but after one of the dinners, we're going somewhere. I have no idea where we're going. And we went to a karaoke bar.
Awesome.
So, now I'm not even drunk. I mean, I had maybe one beer, so I wasn't even drunk. But because I felt like a safe space with my team, I actually kicked it off with a song. So I was the first one that did karaoke. There is a recording of that. I have it on my phone, and I promised myself that I'm never gonna watch it. So far, I'm true to that. So this is gonna be kind of a surprise. But the song that I kicked off our karaoke event was "The Power of Love" by Celine Dion.
Oh, wow. Really?
He rocked it, I heard. I did not hear it, though. I unfortunately, or fortunately, was caught up in a conversation with my coworker, Carolina, outside, and I missed the debut, but I heard it was awesome. Now I'm going to have to hunt you down for the video, Roman.
I need proof.
No way. No way that's going out.
Needs this.
I will commit to trying to get you a still shot from the session. How about that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's actually a story behind that. So I grew up on a farm back in Poland, and it was probably in late 80s when she released that song. And back then, we were all poor. I had a little radio and I could, listen to it. So when I was going to sleep, I would turn the radio on because I wanted to listen to some songs. And they were playing "Power of Love" by Celine Dion. So I just, kind of like the tune. I like the tone. I like the sing. I like her voice. I love her voice.
She's got a great voice.
Yes. So there was that song kind of lived with me my entire life.
Oh, I love that. I love that music has the power to do that. It's just like you can attach, a certain time in place to it, or it helps you, maybe through a period of your life. I've certainly had songs do that for me. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. We'll have to remember that. That's just your song. The Power of
Love.
Love.
Roman will be doing karaoke a lot more often, I think. He can't say no after this. At least not in the safe space with our team. So it was very coincidental. I also had no idea we were doing karaoke during that trip at all. And that night, maybe even in the Lyft or the Uber ride over, I was talking to my coworkers, Nick and a couple other people, about the karaoke that Ali and I did at Traceroute Con with Josh Varghese up in Dallas. And I also don't do karaoke very much. I'm so terrible at singing. My kids ask me not to stop, like when I sing in front of them. Whatever. But Ali and I, so the other thing I forgot to mention in my intro is that I co-host this podcast called Automation Ladies with Alicia Gilpin, otherwise known as Ali G. And we attended this training together. It was about OT networking for SCADA systems and cybersecurity. And so there were about 40 engineers at this training, and probably about 20 of them went out to karaoke after barbecue dinner. And Ali and I kicked it off completely sober with Spice Girls' "Tell Me What You Want."
Nice.
Yes. And
I would not expect anything less of you two.
That's awesome. That story the night that we were in San Francisco to Nick and a couple of my other coworkers. And I was like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I was like, even Roman can do it. And then lo and behold, we ended up at a karaoke bar like 30 minutes after that. Yeah. I think even Nick asked, like, hey, is this because we were just talking about it, or who decided we were doing karaoke? And it was an amazing night. I also ended up belting out I don't even remember the songs we sang. But to be able to do that with your team, or in the case of that OT, I'm mixing it up now, Traceroute Con, it was a group of 20 engineers that didn't know each other very well. Just a few of us kind of knew each other from before. And you walk into one of these karaoke bars, there's not like a party already happening in the room. The room is empty and quiet.
You are the party.
You have to be the party. And, these guys, mostly guys, there was a couple other women, we're kind of standing in the corners and trying to be as far away from the microphones as possible. And we just, Allie and I, we both had made the commitment, like, we're just going to start it and we're going to be terrible and it's going to be fine. Just like we kind of did with the podcast and everything else that we do. And it's kind of amazing how that can just make everybody else in the room feel comfortable. Like, if you're going to go make an ass of yourself in front of them and you're okay about it, then you know what? It's okay for them to do it too. Yeah. And then it turned out, of course, some of them are amazing singers. Some of them have done it a bunch of times. Some of them, that was also their first time. But we ended up with a really great kind of bonding experience with just a room of people that if you had walked me in there earlier and said, these people are going to be best friends singing, you know, Eminem together or whatever it was, like, and Johnny Cash, right? Like, I would have never imagined. But music can bring people together like that. Even introverted engineers that would think they would never do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that story. I didn't know that you all sang the Spice Girls, but that makes me very proud. And then you all are doing, Automation Ladies is doing OT Skateacon.
Yes, and I got to be careful. So that's another, I guess I'm just now used to saying that. I say it too often. My Nick Getz, I want to give him a shout out. He works at Quotebeam. He heads up our marketplace and our quotebeam.com website. So now if somebody's in a pinch and needs a part, it's Nick that saves the day, not me anymore. But he thought I was saying OT SkaterCon, like skateboarding or something. He's like, man, you guys are so cool.
Roman, that would be cool. Can we get one of those?
Yeah, sure.
Because I guess, of course, not to everyone. SCADA, SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, and it's a software system that sits on top of manufacturing plants or processes and things like that, and reports out. But if you're not, kind of deep in controls engineering, you may not know what that means. And so a bunch of people thought that I was saying SkaterCon. So now internally, as we're planning, our head planner for the event, Emily, she just refers to it as Skater now. She's like, oh, are we talking about Skater today? And I'm like, okay, I guess that's just the thing now.
We need to get you a skateboard, Nikki.
Yes. I have plenty of them
purple,
available in my house.
It's gotta be purple.
I'm so not coordinated that I just would fall on my face. But then again, just like karaoke, I should just embrace the fact that I'd probably be terrible at it and still get a purple skateboard and give it a shot, right?
I think it's amazing.
So huge shout out to Quotebeam for being one of the sponsors of OT SkateAcon. We're kind of working through that now, but it's very exciting. We have like 20 very cool industry speakers that are subject matter experts in their own areas, and they're actively, out in the field working. It's not just a bunch of sales pitches, but it's got a real kind of community feel to it, and everybody that's involved has come together to try to make it happen. So it fits very well with like the ethos of how we're developing the Quotebeam platform, which is with the input of everybody that's excited enough to want to be involved.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I think Quotebeam's really kind of developed its own community as well. And I definitely want to get into that more in the conversation too. But really what I love the most and what I really want to start with is the concept of not only the user input, right, Nikki, in the community input on how to develop the platform and optimize it for the user, but the spirits that you all have in your culture, that it seems like you really embrace this idea of intrapreneurship, which is different than entrepreneurship. Obviously, I'm into entrepreneurship. I just have a company, but having those same types of driven principles, like highly motivated, highly creative, highly communicative, very good at your own personal branding. Those are kind of things that we would think about when we're thinking about entrepreneurship and applying those characteristics. What are your, what kind of inspired that journey of entrepreneurship and developing that within Quotebeam? And, do you kind of consider that innovative in this space? Was this something that just kind of happened like organically? What are your thoughts there, Roman?
That's a lot of questions there, so I'm gonna try to get to all of it. I think the first one is maybe why, right? I had this idea all the way in the back, in the back of my head. We bootstrapped it, we tried it. Obviously, it wasn't exactly what we have right now. And as Nikki mentioned, I really had a great job back then, and Andrew worked for Box. He had a really good job. We have a really good career path. I loved Apple. I still love Apple. I mean, the time that I have over there, and I was there 5 years, I loved everything about it. I love the team, the product, the company, the culture, the mission, all of it. So that was a big decision for me, and the reason why is because when we regret things, we regret more so things that we don't do, and not so much the things that we've done, right? Because the things that we've done, that okay, it was wrong, you've done it, and that's it. The things that we haven't done, the question always lingers: what would have happened if you've done it? And that was the thing for me, like, okay, either I'm gonna do it now, or never. I'm never gonna do it. And if I'm never gonna do it, I'm always gonna keep thinking, what would have happened if I went ahead, quit my job, and did this company? And here I'm gonna quote somebody. I don't remember who said that, but basically, when you're 65 and you ask yourself a question, okay, I tried, I failed, yeah, it didn't work, okay, but at least I tried, versus, I didn't try it, maybe I could have made it, and you have that regret for the rest of your life. So that was the point when I say, no, I am gonna do it. So the first is really overcome the fear. And I know a lot of people think, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. You know what? You're never gonna be ready. Just like the karaoke song, right? I'm never gonna be ready to sing. I'm never gonna be a good singer. So you just have to go and do it and overcome that. And the second one that comes in is you need to succeed, right? And the first thing that's gonna hit you in your face is the amount of no's that you're gonna get from everybody. Your idea, you're gonna get some believers, but most people will not believe in your idea, especially when you try to innovate things. And when you try to I wouldn't call it disrupt. I don't like the word disruption, but change. Make it better. You're gonna get a lot of no's from a lot of people, and every time you get that no, you just have to turn around and just keep doing. You cannot give up after you get all these no's, and that also translates to the team that you're gonna bring on board, because just like you're getting a no, right, everybody else is gonna be getting that no, because it's the whole team gets a no. So whether this is you go to a customer and tell them, hey, we can help you, we can do things better for you, right? And we got a lot of things like, we don't need anything, we don't, we good. We approach some distributors, manufacturers, and they will tell us, well, we're happy with our supplying, with our distribution channel. We don't need anything, right? Like, you haven't even listened to me, because we're not another distribution channel for you, but they basically say, no, we don't need it. And it can be very discouraging. It can bring you down, and it's very stressful. It can bring the entire team down. So the way you build that team at the very beginning, you really have to make sure that you build a specific environment, specific culture, and you bring people that they're not going to give up, people that are, willing to take that no and just, get up and keep doing. And here's an interesting story. Entrepreneurship, kind of relates very closely to sales, because sales engineers, especially in industrial automation, they call them outside sales engineers. They get
Nikki
so many
and I talk
no's.
about this a lot, so I love this. I love this so much.
They get so many no's, but yet they love their job. And there's a little story. Back when I was at Apple, our team has already moved to Apple Park, and there was this sales engineer that was selling some small motors, industrial motors. And he would keep emailing. Somehow he found my Apple email address, which wasn't that easy. He figured out the whole schema of Apple email addresses, and I keep getting those email addresses. He's trying to sell me those little tiny DC motors, and I just keep ignoring. But he just keeps coming through. He keeps sending me emails, and once he actually called me. I don't know how he get through. Back in Apple, we had these phones that nobody called them. And when somebody called and that phone rings, it was just a huge anxiety moment, like, who's calling me? We know this is from outside, because everybody from inside would call my cell phone. And he never gave up. So finally I say, you know what, I'll meet with you. So I invited him to Apple Park, because getting in and out of Apple Park, it's a beautiful place, but getting in and out takes at least 15 to 20 minutes. It's so huge. So I cared for my convenience. So I invited him to Apple Park, and I sat down with him and I told him, listen, I really appreciate your perseverance. I'm probably not the right person that you need to talk to because I don't spec components, but tell me your story, right? And he told me the story. He was trying to get to Apple. He thinks that he's got the product that Apple could use. And then, long story short, I asked him, tell me, how do you do that? Like, I haven't replied to you for like months, and you just keep coming back and asking the question in many different variations of the same question, very creative. And he said, Roman, I get so many no's, and I know that I'm gonna be getting the no's. I've just got used to it. And I love working with people. I love interacting with people. And when I do get a meeting like the one that I just took, it just validates the reason why am I doing this. So same thing with entrepreneurship. At the beginning, when we release our marketplace, I always had these doubts. Always, is this gonna work? Are we gonna make it, right? And I call it the entrepreneur roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
For one moment you doubting yourself, right? And then this order comes through out of nowhere, right? And your emotional state just shoots up to the top. Like, you're okay, well, people believe in us, right? This is great. And then it's like a pendulum, like, it just, goes up, then goes down, and then eventually just levels off. So you're in a good state. So yeah, it's all about perseverance, and it's all about not giving up, because you're gonna get so many no's from all over the place.
I love that. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing. Is that something that you, when you're hiring new employees into Quotebeam, is there a way that you screen for perseverance? Is there a way that you screen for that?
Kind of. I think every founder, a startup founder, has its own way. I know Uber and Travis got its own way. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but for the product that he was building and his own personality, that was what he would ask. I'm not gonna say it on your podcast because you have to mute it out. I know Brian Chesky, when he was in Airbnb, when he was hiring employees, especially the early employees, he would ask them, if you have 1 year to live, would you still take this job? Because he wanted to make sure that people take the job for the mission, for the job, not just for the paycheck. I do a little differently. So, first of all, our team is still are considered small. So I interviewed every single person on our team. And there's a number of questions that you ask about their capability to do the job. There's a number of questions that more of behavioral questions. But there's one question that I ask everybody, that kind of is different. And I ask, towards the end of the year, that was actually the last question that I asked. And that was, can you tell me something about climate change? Now that can be controversial question, because there's two groups, and you see, I didn't say anything about global warming.
Right.
I asked
Or
about climate
policy.
change
Or policy.
Yeah, I don't care about any of that, because you have those two extreme groups. One believe this is absolutely yes, the other one is believe that this is absolutely BS. And the answer that I was looking for had nothing to do whether this is true or it's not true. What I was looking for is, can they formulate their own opinion? Can they tell me something that they truly believe? I don't care what that was, right? And the second is, if I have a follow-up discussion with them and I ask questions, can they defend it? Can they really tell me, no, I really believe in this? And the reason why is because when you start a company, you're still building a product, and you're gonna be going through these phases where, okay, we're gonna come up with something, and we don't know if it's gonna be right. We don't know if it's gonna be wrong. Obviously, we try to use this data as much as we can to navigate, but you still gonna gonna have to make adjustments. And in the early stages of a company, you want to have a team that, number one, can come up with ideas, their own ideas, and you have to make sure that they are capable of, innovating. So, first is you have to make sure that the team that you hire is capable of coming up with their own ideas. Like there's definitely a place where you want to have employees where you want to tell them exactly what to do and they're going to do it. Startup company is not that place. So that is the first thing. The second one is, can they defend? Can they really stand up and say, yeah, I really believe it, and here's the reason why I believe it. And when you ask that question, can you tell me something about climate change? It really gives you that first look of what that person is capable of. And the team that we have created, everybody had their own opinion on the climate change, and they're all when I challenged them or asked questions about certain aspect of their answer, they were able to come back and say, no, I really believe this is what it is, this is why. And as a contrast, a person that I wouldn't hire, and I had one of the candidates is somebody who told me that they would go and do thorough research about climate change and then come back and give me a report. Like, I don't need a consultant. I need somebody who can get their hands dirty and get things done. So
Right. I love that. And I use a lot of those same interviewing tactics where you just kind of pick a question and it's not really about the question, right? Like you don't really care
yeah,
either way what the answer is. It's more about how that person answers the question, how they think it through, and get in their ability in what you're saying to give a backed up response to it. Like, is this person going to, and you can assess all kinds of things on that question, right? Is this person going to tell me exactly what they think? And, if so, to me, that builds trust. And that's huge in startups. You've got to have that.
absolutely. And
With your
basically,
teams.
yes, absolutely. And basically, it's all about critical thinking. Can they think outside the box? Can you think on their own? This may not be related exactly to startups, but back in my engineering role, I was an engineering manager back in Festo. So I had a team of 13, 14 engineers back then. So I would hire for various engineering roles. And obviously in the San Francisco Bay Area, it was really difficult to hire electrical engineer that wasn't designing chips, somebody who can design a control system for mechatronics gantry. It's really difficult to find it in Silicon Valley. I was, at some point, I decided that I'm going to give it a chance to freshly graduate students from college, engineering students. And obviously, throughout the U.S., there are schools that have really good co-ops programs, and those students get a lot of internships. And by the time they graduate, their resume is really, big. So Northeastern, Waterloo University, the University of Cincinnati, Purdue, Stanford, Harvard, all these great, right? But there is number of schools, and I was, when I did my undergrad, I graduated from College of Staten Island. Forget about internships over there. And these students don't have that experience. It doesn't mean that they're not great people, right? I graduated from that school, and I think I turned out pretty well. So when you interview fresh graduates, there's not much experience to.
Right.
So I adopted this question. I got this from a friend of mine, Eric Stiegel from Applied Materials, and he told me that, and I started using the same thing. I would give a problem to the student and say, listen, I'm going to leave you here, I'll give you 15 minutes and think about this problem. You have a rotating disc that rotates at 5,000 RPM, and I'm going to give you $50 budget, and you have to come up with something that's going to tell you whether the disc is rotating counterclockwise or clockwise. Now, there's a million answers on how you can do this, right? And at the end of the day, I didn't care what the answer was. What I wanted to see is, can that student, can that candidate, can that person come up with some ideas? And what I was hoping to see is brainstorming of ideas. Maybe I can use this, maybe I can use that, and see how can they use engineering concepts, things that they have learned in their school, to apply to this problem. And the ones that turn out to be very successful could were able to come up with many different ideas. Maybe we can put a counter. Maybe we can put two lights, and we see, one light turns on before the other one. Then they realize that, the frequency is 5,000 hertz, so that's probably not gonna work. But the fact that they were throwing these ideas on the table and brainstorming, that tells you that that person can come up with this innovation, can come up with ideas that you don't have to tell them, okay, do this, do that. They can do it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that. That's definitely in my alley. When you're thinking about like building high performing teams, I think that those are the best. Those are the best question styles to me. But I have worked with a lot of greenfield startups, so that's, I joke and tell people that I'm spoiled and I had excellent training coming into recruiting, and I am spoiled. I had excellent training coming into recruiting, and that was a big part of that, is getting that interviewing training and really, kind of understanding, to your point, like how to assess for hard skills, critical thinking skills as well in the interview process, because that's kind of hard, that's difficult to do. How do you prove that somebody has the critical thinking skills? How do you prove they have communication skills? How do you even, prove somebody practices integrity in their day-to-day work environment? So I love that. That's awesome. When you're thinking about like the future of workforce development, and you're thinking about technology's role in how technology, and I feel like you're going to be a wealth of information here on this question, but how do you feel like technology in 5 to 10 years is going to impact the way that we work?
I think you're kind of relating to the question, are the robots going to take our jobs?
Right.
Is that the hidden question over here?
I mean, robots are going to take some jobs.
Yeah.
The question behind that question is, what jobs are they taking, and do humans want those jobs?
Yes.
But from your perspective.
So maybe let's take a step back, right? And let's go back to probably 1970s, 1980s. Telephones. To have a telephone at home, it was a luxury. At least back in Poland when I lived, there was in the town where I lived, there's probably 4 or 5 telephone lines, and there was over 1,000 houses, right? So can give you a perspective. But back then, the telephones, yes, you make a phone call, but it's not like today. You take the phone and you dial the number. There were telephone switchboards, and there were telephone switchboard operators. You basically call somebody and tell them that you want to connect with that person somewhere in that city, and there's a one switchboard, one operator to another operator, and maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes later you get connected to the call, and then automated switchboards came through, right? And all these operators were out of job. It doesn't mean that the world collapsed. It's just their job has evolved to something else. The fact that there was no manual operators, which a lot of them, it was just a job. They didn't like it. It was a very tedious job. It just transformed to different type of opportunities. There was now you have all these technicians that have to install these automated lines, right? So every time you have this disruption where some technology comes in and takes over, it opens up opportunity for something else. So if we look at the robots, right, the robots are entering in every part of our lives. It opens up enormous opportunities for different professions, different type of jobs. So now you have more technicians, you have more engineering jobs around the technology. If you look at the AI, right, AI is not just AI by itself. This is not something that creates it on its own. You have an army of people, engineers, software engineers behind it that are creating this. We're just becoming much more smarter as a species. We're becoming much more smarter. Now, one thing that it does change to us, and that's what I can tell right now, and that's gonna go into the future, is our behavioral patterns. The advancement in technology changes us as human on how we interact with in our daily lives. As an example, 5 years ago, and I'm gonna go back to our line of business. 5 years ago, when I was an engineer, or 5-10 years ago when I was an engineer, and I was interacting with distributors, with manufacturers, I was designing my projects, specing components. I have a question, I need a quote, I need pricing, availability questions. I would send an email, and I would wait, and I was perfectly okay waiting a day or even 2 days to get that answers from them, right? If I needed something quickly, I would call them, and I call them repeatedly until they answer. But most of the time, I was okay with getting that answer. Today, this is not the case. We don't have that patience, for waiting a day or 2 days for that answer. We want the answer now.
Right.
We don't want to email. I mean, I think calling people, I think this has already very changed. I think we have phones to text, to check internet, to open up the apps. We don't have phones to make phone calls. If I get a phone call on my cell phone, I get anxiety, like who's calling me, right?
I feel so seen.
Yeah, and if you really want to prove, if you are, of my age, or you've been at least having cell phone for past 20 years, and if you still collect, old telephone bills, look at the number of calls. The cell phone companies, when they send you itemized bill, they show you every single phone call you make. And go back 7 years, even 7 to 10 years ago, and look at how many phone calls you made. And then look at the bill today and see how many phone calls you make or receive. It's a huge, huge difference, right? So you have this shift in technology creates a shift in behavior patterns. So now emails, yes, we all use emails because we have to. And just a matter of time until something better is going to come up. We all going to drop emails. That's what happened to fax machines. Right? Nikki has one in the office. If somebody wants a souvenir,
Nikki has a fax machine.
Yeah, I have one. Not to actually fax things. We were using it for fun, for a prop for a show. We decided, I went to the thrift store and we got a bunch of old tech and stuff because, well, I don't know. It's fun to reminisce, I guess. I'm reserving the right to smash it with a baseball bat at some point out my office yard if I have the need. But I needed a fax machine. I was filling out vendor paperwork for a large, Fortune, I don't know what they are, beverage manufacturer that everybody drinks, everybody knows. I was filling out their approved vendor paperwork. And one of the required fields was still a fax number. I don't know what they're planning on faxing me, but I had to go find somebody that I knew with the fax machine. I mean, I know we have all those e-fax and things, but I just honestly, even that, why would I bother with that? We have email, it makes no sense.
It's wild. Somebody asked you to fax them something?
No, they didn't. And I don't think they ever use it, but it's still a required field on their paperwork that you have to fill out a fax number, which to me blows my mind. To somebody younger than me, like you, Ann, you and I, we're not like Gen Zers or anything.
No. I have used a fax machine.
One of them to fill out a paperwork and ask them for their fax number. Let
me get those fax digits.
Yeah, and I was just talking to Emily, who's helping us put together OT Skatacon. She has a marketing agency, and she works with different business owners and stuff. And she was just telling me today, she's like, oh, it's so nice to work with somebody like my age that will just answer questions over text real quick. She's like, I can actually get stuff done for you instead of having to, she's like, I had this client, he's older, and I would email him, I would text him, I would send him all this information. I just had a few questions. And then he would never reply, but I would call him on the phone or he'll call me randomly and then just want to chat for an hour and a half. And he's like, I don't know how they get how to get work done. But she was also saying it just gives me anxiety. You're going to just randomly call me. How do you not, I have meetings and I'm the same way. I want to put a time on the calendar then to call you so that I know that that I'm going to be calling or vice versa, because I think somehow everybody younger, the phone just randomly ringing. We're like, oh my gosh, what is
that?
I don't want this.
That's funny. Yeah, Roman's right. It really does kind of change the way that your behavior patterns and everything. I know we've talked about my old school Rolodex, so I have antiques too.
I have one and I got one for fun, Ann, and I'm gonna use it now. For something, not necessarily, replacing my CRM.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Emily earlier too, and she was saying like, oh, you should just get one of those like digital cards. And I guess
those are cool.
I feel curmudgeon-y and old now, but I still don't know how those work better. Like, I don't just want you now as a contact in my phone. Like, where's the context to that? How am I going to remember that I met you at this show? I mean, I guess unless I like take meticulous notes and keep everybody in my address book, but things are changing super fast. Amazon has ruined a lot of things for a lot of people. I can order stuff and get it like before I wake up the following day.
Amazon is dangerous.
In my location.
And now you can just tell Alexa, to order the things.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the future of work, I'll chime in on this a little bit. I know you didn't actually ask me, Ann, but part of it I think is already here in the sense that a lot of things that are different, like Quotebeam is a remote first company. When we started full time during COVID, like investing the money in a Silicon Valley office space makes no sense whatsoever. And now that we could, we still don't. Obviously, this is, I'm talking off the cuff here. This is Roman's decision and all of that. And there may be offices in our future, but part of it is why not spend the money on experiences for our team to have together that really are special. And we take those special times to bond to make sure. And we have other things like we collaborate over Slack and we have this app that forces us to have coffee with each other. So after this recording, I have a random coffee with my coworker, Nick. And we make sure we try not to talk about work during the coffee times because that's, kind of like the water cooler moments that you miss if you aren't at the office. But honestly, I don't miss having to commute to the office, having a bunch of like talk here and there with people that don't really matter, right? You get inundated with things. I mean, now we're inundated with a lot of digital things, right? I have to check my WhatsApp chats and my Slack and Roman and I were talking on 2 different channels yesterday. I was like, oh, I missed your Slack message. Sorry, I'll answer you on text. So, the problems are always evolving and the solutions are always evolving and everything is changing. And I don't know. I think work can be a lot more exciting going forward because if we can automate some of this stuff that none of us really want to do, whether that's physical automation through machinery or robotic, or in our case, using more AI or machine learning or just smart new apps and technologies that have come out that make it easier for like one person to do a lot of things. We have a lot more power to do a lot more stuff, especially people that are entrepreneurial and look at the mission ahead, not just the job to be done or the hours you're getting paid for. I think there's a ton of room for, like you said, the intrapreneurship kind of thing. Hiring people and empowering them to really make a difference. There's so many more tools now that we can actually provide to workers to be more in charge of their own destiny at work and having more of an impact that I think companies that want to embrace giving their employees the opportunity to take more ownership over what they do, that is becoming easier and easier to do, right, as organizations.
I was going to say that I feel like a lot of traditional companies are more established companies, like distributors, for example. In a way, they're kind of being forced to start being more entrepreneurial because, attracting talent and adopting technology, you have to think outside the box. You can't just, adopt this old playbook that's been there for past 40 years. And one thing you mentioned about Amazon, the changing user behavior is really driven by consumers, B2C markets, Amazon being one of them. And I know a lot of people still think that, hey, this is B2B. We do business with companies. It's not the same as Amazon. It actually is. Because if you think about B2B, behind every B2B customer, there's a consumer, right? Especially right now when we work remotely. So think of this buyer or an engineer, right? When they work from home, do they have 2 computers, one for their personal stuff, one for their work? Likely not. Before they go to work in the morning, they're going to go on the computer, go do their Amazon, order some stuff, right? And then 8 o'clock, kicks in and they got to start work. What do they do? They switch to a different tab and they work, right?
That's right.
And so the expectation on B2B and the work environment is being driven by everything that consumer companies have developed to make life easier for their customers. The reason why, throughout my career, I have moved through, different stages, and one of the stages was sales. And I can understand why people, enjoy sales, right? Because they're outgoing, and being able to interact with customers really brings you joy, especially when those are pleasant interactions, when you help the customers happy, when, like you mentioned before, we saved your life, right?
You did. You did.
Many,
I have a whole story about that, but we'll have to follow that up with a part 2. But Nikki, Quotebeam saved my life one day.
So, I mean, we in the past, I had customers that say, Roman, listen, I messed up. We forgot to order these parts, right? I need these parts really, really quickly, right? And natural responses, sorry, the lead time is 2 to 3 weeks. You need to wait. But if you can do something, if you can move the mountains and get that customer what they need, they will always gonna remember that, right? So, we get into this business because we like these interactions, and those interactions with when the customer's happy are obviously much better than interactions with angry customers that are not happy. And we found a lot of companies that find themselves in this constant firefighting. Like, okay, well, things went south, and we have to fix this. The customer didn't get the stuff, and they keep responding to the customers that are not happy, right? Why? Is because they haven't adopted technology. Because as I mentioned, our patience level, got reduced by great amount. Everything that we do these days becoming so much faster and has to be automated. You cannot do things manually like it was 10 years ago. So yes, established companies need to kind of switch their mentality to be more like startups, because you have to adapt to new styles, and those new styles are more like very similar to running a startup.
Yeah, I wish that more companies that were established shared our sentiment. But I do agree with that stance. I think that's got, and even from a talent development stance, I mean, listen, our competitors are evolving. So we have to also evolve, right? Or we're going to lose the finite number of people that we have to our competitors, right? And our competitors aren't other manufacturing or automations companies or robotics companies. Our competitors are tech companies, Google, Apple, right? So we got to be cognizant of that for sure.
I think there's I know there's already a number of companies that are adopting this. They're embracing this change, right? And if you think about it, everybody says, hey, this in industrial automation and distribution, this market is very saturated. No, it's saturated if you just look at the distribution, but it actually has enormous amount of opportunities, because what I see, what I predict for the next 5 years, that there's going to be a number of companies that will embrace the change, adopt the technology. They will think outside the box, and they're going to be able to succeed much faster and much bigger than the ones that won't embrace that change. So you're gonna have companies that are gonna struggle over time, and there's a number of companies that I talk to, and they say, how is the business? Hey, business doing good. It's okay. We're growing a little bit, right? And I ask follow-up question: are you getting any new customers? And that's where the magic happens. The answer is no. They only work with the new customer, with the existing customers. They're not getting new customers, right? So over the next 5 years, we're gonna see a number of companies that are gonna thrive. They're gonna grow. They're gonna double, triple, quadruple their sales, the growth, and we're gonna see those companies that are gonna stay stagnant, and we're gonna see more companies that just basically gonna go out of business potentially. And we've seen few of them that closed the doors, and the reason why, because they couldn't innovate. They couldn't live in the digital era. They needed that fax machine to get them going, right?
Right.
And Nikki took it. So
Nikki,
I read a survey. 2%. This is a McKinsey study from probably 2 years ago, so it is outdated. But 2% of B2B companies still do the majority of their business over fax, which is 2% more than it should be, I think. the fact that that's still on a survey drives me, it just blows my mind. But we're down one more fax machine in the system now that I have one to smash in my
right? Y'all got landlines as y'all's companies?
No.
Like, no, I mean, I'm asking like the internet, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, right? Y'all got landlines at your company? Oh, that's crazy. That's 2%. Wow.
And then there's some people that still, they print out the PO and they write some notes on it and they attach it to something else. And then by attach, I mean like staple it or whatever. And then they scan that in and then they email that to me and I go enter it on the website because those people are not going to change. There are some people that they're going to continue doing business the way they do, the way they've always done it until they either retire, leave the business, their business leaves, the market, their business will leave with them. And then there's those that are going to be, actually growing in the future and thriving. And I think really just being nimble enough and having enough trust in your people that they can spot and use the opportunities to be innovative, to further the mission that everybody is on together in that company, whatever that mission is. And I think when you have a team that really is focused on that, that's where kind of, the magic happens and you can innovate in a lot of different ways at the same time. It also just can't be coming from one person at the top.
I think it's right because it all comes back to the essence of this discussion that we're having today. You're only as good as your team, right? So if you don't have the team behind it, nothing's gonna happen. Like one person cannot change the company. It needs to be an effort of entire team. So we talk about how you hire a team, right? It's very, very important. But then how do you retain them? How do you keep them happy? How do you motivate them, right? So it's then, comes coaching, growing them. One thing I loved about Apple when I was there is that majority, of the promotions, and I don't have a specific percentage because I don't know everything, but the promotions, from individual contributor to a manager to senior manager to director, Apple doesn't hire people from outside to be managers. They promote within the company, right? And that is very, very important because when you can build that culture in a company, especially once you grow beyond certain number of employees, when employees see that, okay, I actually have a career path, because everybody wants to know what's my career path.
What's next?
There, right?
Yeah.
What's next? What and there's a couple of things to motivate people, right? You can motivate them by doing certain things, like challenge them to create some new ideas, new product, and so on. Some people get motivated by money. Other people are motivated by statue, right? They want to know that, okay, I have a career path, right? And it's different for everybody, but they want to know that, okay, there is a career path. I always, kind of makes me sad when I see that there's a company and there's this great team and they bring a manager to manage that team from outside, and that's where I see that like most of the time that's gonna fail because the manager comes from outside. They have a completely different culture, and they're not gonna understand the other team. A lot of times, I call them bad managers. They want to make a splash really, really quickly. They want to show their expertise. They want to know that they're worth the money that they got hired for. And they will come in and they'll start making changes without even asking questions.
Yeah, it's like they go like full throttle, and then you know what I mean. But it's because of it's coming from a good place with good intentions. But I mean, it's like they go in full throttle. You got to go in slowly and implement change slowly. You just can't pull a rug out from people. Well, I really appreciate you two being on the show today. What is a good way for people listening in today to contact you both? How do we get a hold of y'all?
Well, I would say probably LinkedIn is the easiest way to find us. And Roman's gotten a little bit more active lately after I've been trying to get him to talk more about what he's learning and doing and all the things. Everybody wants to, see a little bit more of who you are, I think. It seems like a common theme, right? And I found it to work really well for me through telling a bit of my story and doing the show and stuff. And I think, when people get to know Roman, they remember him, and he's a very humble person with a lot of skills. And I would encourage everybody to contact him, connect with him, and, follow what he's doing. He's also happy to talk about, like, he's given so many people in my network advice, connected him with someone that he knows from before. Like, although he's been scarce on LinkedIn compared to me lately, that's also because he's behind the scenes, like actually building and managing everything and everyone. Reach out to him. And same, me, LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can find us, I'm sure, links. You probably found the links to this podcast if you're watching it on LinkedIn. But then also our website, quotebeam.com, we have a chat there. And so if anybody needs parts or wants to interact with Quotebeam in any way, we have real people that work for Quotebeam that answer the chats and talk to people on our website all day long. We do also answer the phone, but not always, but we'll call you back if you do a call. There are ways to get a hold of us there. And then our new product that we just developed for distributors, if you're a distributor or in the supply chain space in automation, and you want to look at doing some innovating on the back, in the back office for you and your team or for your customers, then we also have a new website called salespilot.quotebeam.com, which is aimed at our distributors, and they can actually use the infrastructure that we've built for quotebeam.com, our chat, our quotes, all of that good stuff on their websites with their customers to help bring their business online.
That's cool.
And then for me, if you want to follow Automation Ladies, automationladies.io is our website. You can also find info on OT SCADACon there, automationladies.io/OT SCADACon. So I'd say that's probably the best way to get in touch with us. Roman, unless you have something else to add there.
No, I like your twist on the website. As you know, that I am a huge promoter of online communication, online collaboration. I believe that websites becoming the new frontier for interacting with customers.
Yeah.
We are still, that's the online chat that we have built is built exactly for that type of collaboration. I believe it's gonna replace. Well, I wouldn't call it replace, but it's gonna complement the relationship building between sales engineers and customers. Huge fan of that, and our team is still relatively small. Well, we're growing, but I still look at the online chats.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really cool.
Of course.
But thank you both so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. You guys, thanks again. We'll have to do this, and you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.